How many glad to be in the house of the Lord today? Amen, amen. We welcome all of you once again. Thank you for spending part of your weekend with us. We've been in a series called Reply All, and it's just based on a lot of questions that we get over time. Maybe you fill them out on a card when you write a prayer request. Oftentimes, our office will say, even on the tithe envelopes, there'll be special requests, or oftentimes it'll be, pray for me going through this, praying for a miracle. It's really neat to see. In fact, so we get those, and when we see them, they don't just get discarded. We hold on to them. We pray for the need. We believe God for whatever it is that you're walking through, going through. And so that means a lot to us. And oftentimes what we do is we'll begin to notice that there are many people asking the same question. So instead of getting back to 8 or 10 different people individual times, that's kind of what this message is these messages are. This series is we're just replying all. At the same time. It's really been a great series, had so many great responses. We've talked about mental health, talked about depression, and we're finding out, as I mentioned a while ago, it's okay to not be okay. Recently, someone came to me and said, Pastor Jay, your messages have been so on time for our family. He says, little did we know that someone very close to one of my daughters. It's an older gentleman and his family that became very close, and they had a connection over tragedy some years ago, and they were a helpmeet to one another. And the gentleman passed away. He was up close to 90, maybe a little over 90 years old, and he passed away. And she reminded her talking with her mother. And she says, Mama, I'm not okay. And Pastor Jay said, it's okay to not be okay. And she said, and Pastor Jay, the mother's telling me, it was just such a great moment that my daughter and I had, crying together, learning together, praying together. And she said, thank you for your thoughts and reminding us that it's okay to not be okay. All of us will be forced or have experienced a worst moment. Even as I say worst moment in your life, automatically thoughts begin to come immediately. You're immediately going back to that worst moment. That tragedy, that divorce, that bankruptcy, all of us will face tough times at one time or another. Maybe your children young do well, and as they get into young adulthood or into adulthood, maybe their choices are not the ones that you would particularly care that they make, and maybe it's a lifestyle change, maybe it's a lifestyle that maybe you don't appreciate or don't condone or whatever, and you'll go through that season where you begin to cry, you begin to ask, and you begin to experience emotions and feelings and whatnot, and it's really important that we know how to deal with hurt, with pain in our life. And so I'm replying all today. And today I'm going to give you this. Here's our title today: How to Survive Life's Worst Moments. How to survive life's worst moments. I saw an article in the Florida newspaper. It was online recently, and sometimes you can just really have some bad days. I don't know if I've ever had a bad day like this gentleman. So if you think you're having a bad day or in a bad time of your life, here's the Florida newspaper. A man was working on his motorcycle in his patio. His wife was in the house in the kitchen. The man was racing the engine on the motorcycle, and somehow the motorcycle slipped into gear. The man, still holding the handlebars, was dragged through the patio door, and the motorcycle dumped onto the floor inside the house. The wife, hearing the scream, ran into the dining room, found her husband lying on the floor, cut, bleeding, motorcycle parts next to him, the patio door shattered. She ran down, called 911, summoned the ambulance. Because they lived on a fairly large hill, the wife went down several flights of long steps to direct the paramedics to her husband. After the ambulance arrived and transported the husband to the hospital, the wife uprighted the motorcycle and pushed it outside. However, the gas from the tank of the motorcycle spilled all over the living room floor. The wife obtained some paper towels, blotted out, cleaned up all the gasoline, and threw the towels in the toilet. Some of y'all already know where this is heading. The husband was treated at the hospital and was released to come home. After arriving at home, he looked at the shattered patio door, the damage done to his prized motorcycle. He became despondent, went into the bathroom, sat on the toilet, and smoked a cigarette. Do you need me to finish the article, or you got it? After finishing the cigarette, he flipped it between his legs into the toilet bowl. The wife, who was in the kitchen, heard a loud explosion and her husband screaming. She ran into the bathroom, found her husband on one side of the floor, his trousers on the other side of the floor, what had been blown away, suffered burns on the back of his legs and other places. And the wife again ran to the phone and called for an ambulance. The same ambulance crew that had just left was actually the ambulance crew that carried him, that came back for him. While they're going down the steep stairs to the street, accompanied by the wife, one of the paramedics asked the wife, "How did your husband burn himself? He just had a motorcycle incident, now he burned himself." She told him about what happened, and one of the paramedics started laughing so hard, the stretcher dumped and the husband fell out and he broke his ankle. Come on. So if you thought you were having a bad day, it may not be that bad, all right? Here's what I want to tell you. There are going to be days you're going to go through some tough stuff. There's going to be days where you're going to experience something you never thought you'd have to walk through. And in those moments, you better have a game plan. In those moments, you better have already decided what choice you're going to make. Because if you rely on emotions, if you rely only on your feelings, your emotions, they're going to lie to you. Your emotions and feelings are going to take you down one way when you ought to be traveling in the opposite direction. And it's the difference between where you end up are going to be about the choices you make when the tragedy comes. I mentioned last week how it's so encouraging to see those that have lost spouses recently. And I won't start naming names like I did last week because I'll leave some out, but I know who you are and I know where you sit, and it's really amazing during a worship experience when I turn and I catch their eyes or I catch them worshiping and so I throw up my hands. All I have is a hallelujah. I wish I could sing. And I watch them and I understand what they went through, the loss, the pain, the struggle, the new chapter now. And you're going to go through things. And if you don't have a game plan, you end up in the wrong spot. Let's look at 2 Corinthians real quick. We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about the troubles we experienced in the province of Asia. This is the Apostle Paul who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure. We thought we were dead, so that we despaired of life itself. They contemplated suicide. Indeed, we felt we had received the sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. The Apostle Paul said, even though it felt like we were going to lose our own life, we recognize that God has the final say, and he'll even raise us from the dead. If this thing kills me, God has the power to raise me up even from the dead. Watch this. I want you to catch that. Say this with me. He has, he will, he has delivered us from such a deadly peril. He will deliver us again. On him we have set our hope that he will continue. Say that with me. Say, go back to the other verse. So let's say this with me. Say, he has. You got to know that when you're walking through some stuff. God has kept you through the past. He is walking with you now, and he will continue to be with you every step of the way. All right? And so we have to understand that. Every one of us in here are in one of three great categories. Either you're walking towards something bad, you're in something bad, or you're walking out of something bad. So if you're really having a good day today, you're in category one. Aren't you glad you came to church today? I'm your pastor. Right? Either you're walking towards something, you're in the middle of it, or you're walking out of it. But that's where we all will find ourselves today. And so we've got to remember that he will, he has, he will, and he will continue. You say, well, Pastor Jay, you need to be positive, okay? I'm positive you're going to get into some trouble. You say, well, Pastor Jay, why is that? Can I tell you? Because the earth is broken. We live in a broken earth. This is what sin does. Sin destroys. Sin destroyed earth. Our weather is broken. That's why we got these crazy weather patterns. Al Gore tries to blame it on global warming. It's global sin. It's nothing warming. Thank you, Miss Debbie. Thank you very much. It's not global warming, it's global sinning. And sin destroyed the earth. That's why our weather is broken. That's why our economy is broken. It's why nations are broken. You've seen the third world countries, poverty, violence, all of the things that happen when a place is broken. Relationships are broken. Our world is broken when a young 19-year-old kid with an assault weapon can walk into a school and take the innocent lives of children. We live in a broken world if you haven't figured it out. And you can try gun laws, and you can try restrictions, and you can add age, and you can do whatever you think you need to do, but there will always be evil on this planet. You will never be able to legislate it. You'll never be able to govern it. You know why? Because we live in a broken world because of sin. And we have to understand that. You say, well, why doesn't God do something about it? He did. God has a rescue plan from this broken earth. You know what it is? It's called heaven. And he has a son that he sent by the name of Jesus Christ. And he says, hey, it's a broken world, and it's messed up, and it's jacked up, and relationships are jacked up, and what seems like right is now wrong, and what seemed like wrong is now right. It's a fallen place. It doesn't make sense. It hurts. There's a lot of pain. I don't understand everything, but here's what he says, but I have a plan. His name was Jesus, and I set up a place where there's no cancer, where there's no pain, where there's no tears, where there's no shootings, where there's no AK-47s in the classroom. He said there's a place. It's called eternity. And I need you to get there with me. I have a rescue plan. Why does he do something about it now while I'm here? Sometimes he does. We hear the stories. He's diagnosed with cancer. Walked in for my results. Go back in 6 months to see if the cancer's growing. I go back. They can't find the cancer. We've heard those stories. We give God praise and thanks, and every one of us has been short of our life in a car wreck. I got pictures of some of my friends' kids recently. You look at the car and you think, how did they not die? There's no way. I've seen a lot less wreck that had death. And Mark, you know what I'm talking. I've seen your pictures, son. And I've seen my own kids. It's like, God, thank you. So we know that God at times steps in and does what God can do. But God has a rescue plan. It's called heaven. That's why, regardless of what you experience in this world, in this earth, in this time, in this season, don't miss the life after this. It's what Jesus died for. It's what he came for. Don't miss heaven. In 2014, Pastor Rick Warren out of Saddleback Church in California, he probably wrote the book that has been read more times in more languages, probably second to only the Bible, and that is A Purpose-Driven Life. Pastor Rick Warren has been on top of the pastor game, if you will, for a number of years, teaching, administering, just on time. His character, his loyalty, his love, never any broken promises. He's been phenomenal. And in 2014, his only son, the pastor of one of the greatest churches in all of America and around the world, his book written in over 150 different languages and sold millions upon millions of copies. His son, the one that reaches the world but can't reach his own family, his son went through a time of depression and in 2014 took his own life. Pastor Rick Warren, he's been so open about that experience. Some 7-10 years later, he's helped people that have experienced that same trauma in their own family, in their own family lives. He's been open and honest, and here's what he talks about. He talked about there are 6 stages that you go through when tragedy strikes. And you better have a plan in place before it comes so that you end up where God needs you to be and not where your emotions and your feelings want to take you. I'm going to give you a couple things. I don't know how much time we have. I'll give you as many as I can. Here's stage number 1. Whether it's something big or something little, whether it's a major tragedy in your life or it's just an inconvenience. I love going to bed. I try to get to bed early on a Saturday night. I got a big day on Sunday and I want to be rested and energized. And so I try to work it out where if we even go out to eat, we're going to go early. I want to get back. I want to get settled. And I like to be in bed on Saturday. And one day we had just moved into our house just about a year ago or so, just in it a few days. And Saturday, and we had been working so hard. And I go to bed and I get in bed and Tessie wakes me up. Baby, wait, the toilet's overflowing. It's just, I can't stop it. I'm like, really? I said, what happened? She goes, I don't know. It was the first time we flushed that toilet all day long. I'm like, why couldn't we have flushed this toilet like at 9 o'clock in the morning? I had all day to call Grant, I had all day to fix it. But it's gonna overflow at midnight on a Saturday. Now, that may not mean a whole lot compared to what you're walking through, but here's the stages. The first is this. It's called shock. You just can't believe it. All of a sudden your phone rings and doctor calls you back or a family member calls you back and you're just in total shock. You're having headaches. You went to the doctor to see if maybe it was your high blood pressure, and it's because there's a mass in your brain. Now you're in complete shock. You can't believe it. You didn't see it coming. You kind of begin to get disoriented about everything. Oftentimes let me just help you, when shock comes, the last person you want to be with is by yourself. Your emotions are going to go crazy. Your feelings are going to run all over the place. You better have some people in your corner. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help, but someone who falls alone is in real trouble. 2 are better than one. It's not a sin to fall. It's really pitiful when you stay there. Here's what I've learned. When life falls apart, don't run from God and people, run to them. And oftentimes we do that. We all of a sudden our emotions and we start blaming God. God, why? How could you let this happen? God, if you really cared, God, if you really loved me, you'd have taken the cancer. You'd have let my spouse live a few more years. They were still young. God, why? Why me? Why do I have to go through? Is anybody else going through all of these things? And your emotions will go. You all of a sudden you get news of a son or a daughter, something happened in their life, something that they're experiencing, some heartbreak, some brokenness, some, maybe a lifestyle of sin. And if you're not careful, the emotions move us to isolation. We like to go have a pity party all by ourselves. It's not healthy. One translation of Ecclesiastes says, God says, I feel sorry. It's pitiful that they have no one to go talk to. No one to help, because isolation brings confusion. And in that shock and in that moment, your mind, if I would have done this, if we would have stayed later, if I'd have called, if I'd have said, I'm sorry, if I would have forgiven them, if I would have known, if I would have done this, if I would have went visit, if we would have stayed longer here, we wouldn't have been on the road then. If we'd have left earlier, we wouldn't have been here. And all of a sudden our mind goes crazy. Well, when my son did this, I should have done that. And I didn't know then what I know now. And I could have done it different. And I would have probably saved a whole lot. And and our emotions go crazy, and our mind goes 1,000 miles an hour, and we get slowly we get into by ourselves in a period of isolation, and it's not healthy. So Rick Warren was saying the first thing is go into shock. So let me tell you, when you start to feel the shock, don't run from God and people, run to them. Number 2, the second phase is sorrow. Grief It's actually a healthy emotion. It's okay to cry. A while ago in our worship experience, when some of you came down to the altar, most all down at the altar where you could see tears and running down their face or their. It's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve. Isaiah 53 verse 3 says, God, Jesus on the cross, was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows. God gets it. He feels it. He's acquainted with deepest grief. We turned our backs on him and looked the other way. He was despised, and we did not care. The Bible says in John 11:35, when he found out the news that his best friend Lazarus had died, the Bible said that Jesus wept. The second phase would be sorrow. But I want you to, in crying and grieving, it's fine, it's good, it's healthy. But staying there forever and for long periods of time is very unhealthy. The Bible says that even in death, those that know Christ, we grieve, but we don't grieve like others without hope. We have a hope in Christ. When my mother died and my dad called me and said, Jay, January the 4th, 2012, Jay, I was with your mother. Tessie and I had just left the hospital. She said, Jay, at 9:15, I was standing next to your mother. I was holding her hand. She took her last breath and died. And I was on my car in university, and I was coming back to the office. And when my dad called me and he told me that, I barely made it back to Stone because I was tearful. There were emotions. She was struggling. She was in pain. So it was really a joy for her to be out of that broken body that she was in. But I knew she'd be missed. I knew I would. She was a mom. All those things, and boy, I just cried. And but I did it, but with a hope. I know that one day I'll be reunited with her. I know that one day I'll see her again. And don't ever be so overwhelmed with grief, because what happens is eventually it takes over. Kind of like your beautiful flower bed when the gardener leaves in the spring. He comes give you a little spring clean, puts a fresh mulch, adds those things. It looks so good. You step back and wow, Instagram. Let me see that Instagram in about July. See that weed bed. That's exactly what happens with guilt or with sorrow and pain. We get there, healthy, it's good, it's cleansing, it's refreshing, but you can't stay there. If you keep wallowing around in that, eventually, like your flower bed, those weeds take over and ruin everything. Psalm 61. Psalm 61. Hear my cry, O God. Attend to my prayer. From the end of the earth, I will cry to you. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. I can't teach this, but I'll tell you, you got to try it. Here's what I found. When I'm broken, when my heart aches, when I'm in pain, here's what I've learned. Go to that next slide. Worship changes everything. I can't teach it. I don't know enough about it. I don't. You've heard me sing. It's obvious. I can't teach you that. There are times when I feel the weight of life and the heaviness. I'll run up to my office. Sometimes you just need to get away and you just need to be alone for a minute. I'll run up to my office and I'll close the door. And there's one song that I go to. It's my go-to worship song. It was written by my youth pastor of 1990, Clint Brown. And Clint's a worshiper, and he's written a lot of songs that we do and others have done for years. And Clint wrote a song, and it's on my computer. And when I don't understand, and I can't figure it out, and I don't know why, and I don't know where, and I don't know how long, and it just hurts, I get up to my computer as fast as I can. I go to my iTunes and I hit play. Just play. And it's in that moment I begin to feel the strength. I begin to feel the power. I begin to feel a release. I can't explain it. And I don't know how it works. I don't know how airplanes work either. I jump in them and go places. I don't know how all this works. Go back to that last scripture. But I know what David said. David said, God, when my heart's bleeding and crying, I'm going to cry out to you. And when my heart is overwhelmed and I don't understand and I'm not certain, Lord, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. If I had the voice of Josh, I'd get out here and sing. Josh, come help. Clint wrote a song, I worship you because, you know,
That sounds beautiful, though.
yeah, thank you. I worship you, Lord, I worship you. That one, God, sing it.
I live to worship you.
This is my go-to song.
To worship you, I live. To worship you, I live to worship you.
Would you stand all over the house? Come on, just worship.
To worship you, I live. To worship you, I live to worship you. Oh, live to worship you. Yeah. Give it to him today. To worship you, I live to worship you. I live to worship you. Sing to worship, I live to worship you. I live to worship you. We give it all to you, Lord. You're the master creator. To worship you, I live to worship you. I live to worship you.
So the first phase, the first stage is shock. Can't believe it. Can't believe it happened to me. Can't believe I'm gonna have to walk through this. I can't believe. The second is grief. I'll continue the next stages next week. Stage 3, I just give you a little insight. Don't tell the people that aren't here that you already know 3. But this was hard. The third phase is struggle. You start struggling with it. Jesus was going through something. He struggled. He was struggling. Sometimes it's hard. In fact, look at Jeremiah 20. Jeremiah, he gets so down on what he had to go through. Why was I even born? That's how low he was. Did you put me on this earth just so that I would have trouble and sorrow? Is that why I'm here? Because it's all that I'm feeling. God, is that why I was born? So that I could go through hell all of my life? That's what he said. And that my life would end in disgrace? See, here's the struggle. We only see it on this side. We only see it on this side. Jeremiah writes 2 books of the Old Testament. He didn't realize how God was going to use that situation. I'll talk about it next week. How that God used this situation to change him. He wanted to die. He was mad at God. He wanted his life was going to end in disgrace. But he wrote 2 books of the Bible. Why? Because we see it on this side. God sees it on this side. That's where many of you are today. You're in the struggle. You're trying to figure out and you're trying to make it make sense today. Can I help you? You may never understand on this side why you walked through and been through and seen the things that you've had to experience. You may never know. God may reveal, He may show. So we're going to learn next week how to get on the other side of the problem. If this box here, if you can see it, represents the problem, and I'm on this side, I can't see. I'm like Jeremiah. My life is miserable, too much pain. That's because I'm seeing it on this side. But if I get on this side, it's called a different perspective. The problem's still there. It's still near me. It's not like I went over there. I'm just here, but on this side. You know, in Kids World, every nursery, there's a window. There's a door, obviously, to get in, but there's a window outside of every nursery door. You can see into every classroom. But if you're in the classroom, guess what? Can't see out. The same window. We did that on purpose so that Mama, you can go check on your baby. Oh, look, because, you know, Mamas check and they make sure, and are they okay? Or did they stop crying and all this? Dads, we just drop them off and run. Moms are different, so this is a mom glass. We have a mom glass for all you moms that care. And you can go check and look and see. And guess who can't see you? You know what happens when them babies see mama? Wow! Take off, right? So it's all what you see determines on what side of the glass you're on. Are you with me? Oftentimes, you're on the kid side. That's where Jeremiah was. He was on the kid side of the glass. All he could see was that. That was the struggle. But once you get on the other side and you turn around and go, oh. Have you ever done something and you felt after it looked like a big old deal, and then all of a sudden somebody showed you something and it's just like, am I the dumbest guy in the world or what? What time is it? Oh my God, we gotta leave, but I gotta tell you this story. Quit playing, I wanna make sure they hear. I got a new truck about 20 years ago. It was new to me, it wasn't new. Just when there's a first big truck, 250, I had a boat, I got this red truck and it had these mirrors, side mirrors, and if you pull in a big trailer, they would extend out. I had this, it looked like a little accordion smashed on the thing, and I told somebody, I said, man, what is that? He goes, well, your windows extend. I'm like, really? He said, yeah. He said, I pulled on them. I'm like, oh my God. So man, you really get a good view of your trailer you're pulling or your boat. And so I wish Boogie was here. I went to Boogie's house. I said, Boogie, check out. Oh man, that's a nice rip. Ooh, look at that. This was back in 2007 or 8 or something. So I mean, everything was kind of new. And I said, check out these windows. He said, what is that? I said, watch this. I said, you know how in your truck you got to get out and you got to adjust and you got to add the extender window to it? He said, not this one. I said, watch this. I pulled that thing out. Pulled it out on the other side. He goes, wow, now that is nice. About that time, Brian Hunt pulls up to Boogie's house and do something. I said, Brian, check this out. He said, what? I pushed him back in. Pulled him back out. He said, whoa. He said, you don't hear that? I'm like, yeah. Sounds like love whenever I pull that thing. He said, no. He said, that's a gear. You're stripping a gear. He said, there got to be a button inside. I said, no, there's no button. He said, no, I'm telling you. You're stripping a gear. He said, get out. Brian, you remember this? Brian gets in there and goes, yeah, look, watch this. I looked at Boogie, he's like, I'm like, you felt so dumb. When you're in the struggle, it looks so stinking real, absolute, permanent. It's gonna work like this is how it works. This is just gonna go down every time. I gotta get out and I gotta pull. It looks like that, but when you get on this side and all of a sudden you have it from God's perspective, man. Talk about ease the tension. Come on, lift a hand. Father, we thank you today for a time to talk, share, open up. our feelings, our pain, our hurt. Father, we're learning that it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay not okay. We're going to get better. We're going to become more like you. That's why, guys, I love all you internet watchers. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're watching. Hundreds and hundreds are watching. But you can't get on that TV screen as good as they do, and they try to. You can't get what we felt today. You can't get it unless you hear it. I've had people tell me, Pastor Jay, you need to go watch the message. My God, it was awesome. I'm going to look, and it's like, what did y'all hear? Am I listening to the right message? This ain't that good. And but there's something about being here. And I know summer's busy, and I know we're busy, and life's busy. But man, there's something about getting here on a Sunday for a little bit, and sometimes a little longer, like today, just a little longer. No charge. Listen, we don't charge extra for the extra 4 minutes today, all right? It's on the house. Come on. Come on, just lift a hand and say, Jesus, I love you. Help me to become more like you. In Jesus' name. Tell somebody, say, your best days are ahead. Your best days are ahead. Amen. Come on, give the Lord a hand clap of praise today.